if you could do us a favor after you're finished, if you could, all the copies that have been distributed to the commissioners, if you could come up here and put them in order and make sure that each commissioner has each one of the exhibits that you've submitted.
I can do that.
And I'd like to have a copy myself also.
So we'll recognize then that number 7 is missing. Okay. So then I do have 10, 11, and 12, which would be final. So this would be for the clerk there. And then,
If you only have 8, how are you coming up with 10, 11, and 12?
because there's 3 more right there, and there's 1 missing. So that would be 11 total.
So just to clarify, you've submitted 10 exhibits and they're
11 exhibits.
11 exhibits and they're numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Yeah. Yeah. And I apologize for that.
All right.
Trying to keep track of them all. So here's the order of 10, 11, and 12. That's while they're doing that, Commissioner, just give me a second here. Make sure. If I may, just a few questions to clean things up.
Sure.
Mr. Gilbert, would you consider that the conclusion of your flood report that there's no substantial increase in the base flood elevation is within a reasonable degree of engineering certainty?
Yes, it is.
And can you also certify that the technical methods used correctly reflect currently accepted technical concepts?
Yes, they do.
At this time, I would move Mr. Gilbert as an expert witness as well, and certified as an expert witness.
Accepted. Check.
I have no further questions of Mr. Gilbert.
Mr. Jenkins, before the others ask questions, who is the highest ranking JB corporate member here in the courtroom today?
They're about equal, yeah. One deals with permitting and one gentleman deals with land.
Okay, what is the name of the person who deals with permitting?
It's Shane Dow, and he deals mainly with the DEP permit.
Okay, Shane Gow?
Dow, D-O-W-E-L-L.
I have a question for Mr. Dow. Do you understand that in Doddridge County that it is your corporate obligation to come to the floodplain administrator now under the new ordinance any time that your company's doing any development within Doddridge County?
Yes.
To determine whether you're in the floodplain or out of the floodplain on any project of development in Doddridge County?
Yes.
And does your company intend to comply with that requirement of the ordinance?
Yes.
That's all I have. Any questions from any of the petitioners?
Any questions from any petitioner?
Are we still on Mr. Gilbert, or?
I should have asked. Is there any other witnesses that you intend to call or evidence to present?
Well, I'd prefer if Mr. Gilbert's finished up first, and then we'll see. I mean,
Okay.
there's some questions could be
Yeah.
answered.
Questions?
And I'm sorry, this is informal.
Yeah. Mr. President, I think you should ask for any questions from the petitioners to Mr. Gilbert.
Any questions from the district, Mr. Gilbert? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what you're saying that your study is great and nobody's going to be hurt. If there is
She needs to
a
identify
flood,
herself.
Tina, identify
as
yourself.
Tina Delpert.
Two things. If you could identify yourself and be loud enough to be recorded.
My name is Tina Delpert, and my question is, you're saying your study is right and done by specifics and that nobody's going to be affected if there's a flood. So my question is, if there is a flood and something happens on that site, are you the one going to be held responsible?
My answer is that we're protecting to a certain level of protection, which is a 1% chance of occurrence in a year. And we're also looking at what the difference is in damages or water level, actually, during that event. And my statement is that the level of the water during that base flood event, the 1 in 100 year, or the 1% annual chance of reoccurrence, is insignificantly raised by this project. And after the barriers are removed, it has no effect.
But if there is an effect, are you the one to be held responsible? I want to know who's going to be responsible just in case something like that happens that you're not counting on, because there's only a 0.1% that happen in a year.
Man, that's a legal question that is not in my realm of expertise and will not be decided today, I don't think. You have a question?
Theodore Strong. Yeah, Mr. Gilbert, I think I had an engineering question that may question the models that you're working on. We had a lot of development up and down that road affecting the McElroy Creek, a lot of pipeline, hillside runoff. I know that these creeks gather this silt, and when they do, that the water level raises just as you would, water level would raise in your tub with the items that you would put in. I don't see how your models can be correct unless they take into account the additional silting in these creeks from all the runoff of the current development and just in the recent few years. That would be effective. That would have effect, would it not?
The accumulation of sediment in the
Sediment
stream,
in the stream raises the water level,
to some degree, yes.
which negates your models to some degree.
The models were done not only with the digital data from 2003, but for the stream itself, we used the data that came from Jackson Surveying in 2012. Because the aerial photography can't see through the water,
Yeah.
and so we used their elevation data for the bottom of the stream. So we used a 2012 sediment situation to determine what
I think that would
the
be,
base is.
more or less a fluid situation since it's constantly,
Every
sediment is constantly being added to this equation.
It comes and it goes, and it's too complicated for us to include
Yeah, I would,
in the FEMA program.
yeah.
And it's happening because of development. It happens naturally as
Oh,
well.
yes, it does. But I'll tell you, it's happening at a rapid rate with we're having a lot of slides, or they're coming across the roads, or heading for the creeks, and this is recent development of pipeline on hillside, roadway on hillside.
My task in this specific instance was to determine what impact, if any,
I know.
JV's project
I'm just
was
asking
proposed.
if this is included in your data, would it alter your data if it's not, if it weren't there?
It would alter the data no matter where we were.
Yeah,
It would-
okay. Thank
But
you.
it's a refinement that we just can't afford to do.
I understand, but I mean, we have a peculiar amount of development going on that's adding to this situation. Extraordinary.
Mariana Beram, and I wanted to question, you went through what the effects on the house, the dwelling would be, but I have serious concerns that I believe you stated there were no effects on the trailer. And just having watched floodwaters in the region, I'd be hard pressed to believe that the trailer would not be affected by rising floodwaters. I mean, it just seems like the effects on the trailer and the other dwelling that's downstream from the trailer, what are the base flood situations at that location?
The project, as proposed, has no effect on the flooding, if it would, whether it would occur, how severe it would occur, or whether it would not occur on structures downstream from the downstream extent of JV's development. It does not impact facilities downstream from the project.
I guess maybe where I get confused is, and I could understand the logic if you're raising whatever on the flood routine, that you're blocking water up. You know, like I said, we had this discussion over the phone, but my concern is if whatever is potentially blocking water, once whatever breaks and the water lets loose, just from watching stuff happen in my own particular creek, when you remove a blockage, it appears like the velocity of the water increases and moves a lot faster. When the velocity of the water increases and moves faster, there is more of a potential for harm and damage. That's where my concern is. Plus, I wanted to also ask, the photography, the 2003 photography, was that based on Google Earth, the Google Earth photography, or?
It's not. You can view it in
Yeah.
Google Earth if you move the slider.
Okay.
Right. And I believe it's the same database that's used in West Virginia Flood Tool to determine elevations. And I should also say that that data has some variability in it, but we calibrated that data using the data that was collected in the field by Jackson Survey. So we tested the data and changed it 0.8 of a foot, a
But-
relatively minor amount, to get it calibrated to this job site.
Okay, it appears to me that the West Virginia Flood Tool, you have an option of different databases and different years,
Yes.
to look at. I think I'm not sure if the latest one, and I might be remembering incorrectly, but I thought the latest aerial photography in the West Virginia Flood Tool is 2011. And I could be wrong, but it seemed like those were dates, because I know that it stepped back to, I believe it was 2003 when it originally came out. So you pretty much used the oldest aerial photography that was available when there was more current stuff that might potentially present a more current picture of what's going on. And the question is, I know you explained, but I don't really understand the logic of your explanation.
Okay. So there are two products that we're talking about here, and one comes from the other. So in 2003, the state collected aerial photography, and they had overlap so that they could view it in stereo, so that they could see elevations. That's more expensive because you have to fly everything at least twice. A lot of it is flown 3 times. The photography since that time for the state does not have the stereoscopic view. So although the image is from more recent, it doesn't support determining elevation. And so that's why I used the 2003 elevation data.
Maybe I should clarify the fact that I have some experience with mapping, okay? I have 30 years of experience with digital mapping, okay, as well as 30 years of experience working for an oil and gas industry. And I also have a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Sciences, okay? I know everybody was given their credentials. I missed that opportunity early on. But I know that when the original photography was done, there were questions on some of the stuff that was going on because of the cameras, because of the time of year it was done, because of potential tree cover, and I know that there was some issues with the 2003, some of the 2003 photography. It's not, and I know when they were, I forget what the terms were used for them to get that stereo, for the elevation and stuff, but it almost seemed in certain things and discussions that I had that some of the earlier USGS topographic maps that had elevation data on them, or for the elevations, might not necessarily show you the stream bed elevations, but the USGS maps that were done earlier were actually more accurate in the elevations that were presented in them than the 2003 aerial photography that was done. So I sort of, me personally, I would question, I still question the validity of that, but I can understand it being used as a tool.
And my response would be, it's the best available data. And Jackson surveyed the site. They didn't use GPS in this instance. They came from a nearby monument, which is a more certain or less error prone, perhaps. I'm speaking for the surveyor, it should be. Methodology, and we verified the digital elevation data against their data with 16 data points. And I determined that I needed to move the digital elevation data 0.8 of a foot to match his results, which is my experience in other locations in the state is that's some of the best fit I've seen in the data. And this is a standard practice that we've been doing on projects throughout the area.
The other question that I would have, okay, you stated, or someone stated, the berm that's there is going to be there during this construction process, but this construction process and the drilling process will last for X number of months. It appears that to drill the 2 vertical holes that were drilled on site, it seemed like it took a month and a half. It seemed like they were there forever. Perhaps someone from JB can answer that question on the time frame. So if the intent is to drill 3 more holes, I'm concerned about the time frame that this berm will be in place while all this is going on, because the other stuff that's in this area, it's not only this construction of this berm, but there are also mounds of the topsoil that was removed to create part of the site, which are also additional impediments for water flow, which to me, would have more impact to dwellings upstream, as well. I still feel dwellings downstream are affected. But so this berm might potentially be in that area for 9 months.
I can't answer.
Okay, that was a figure I thought I heard you state while you were talking about this stuff.
I may have mentioned something on that order, but I don't.
But it's still not going to be a week or 2 weeks. It's going to go into months. So that in itself, in a 9-month time frame, like I said, so far this year, since March, we have had 4 major flood events in this area of the county. 4. Not 1, not 2, but 4, and the last one occurring last week. And the one last week was, the flood levels were higher than they had been in the preceding ones. And so this berm would, you know, this, I don't know, I think I'm starting to talk in circles, so I'll drop it. But I just feel that that berm will be an impediment to the waters that need to move, and it's going to be there for a long period of time, which will have more of a detrimental effect or potential detrimental effect on the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Any further?
Any further?
Do you mind if I ask Mr. Gilbert just one kind of follow-up question, and maybe he can explain the whole burn?
That's
Mr.
fine.
Gilbert, and you explained this to me, and maybe this will help Ms. Beram kind of understand why that burn's important. When you did this study, was the berm ineffective for flood?
Yes.
Could you restate that again, please?
Was the berm ineffective for flood?
And your response was?
Yes, it's ineffective.
What does that mean?
The term ineffective in this instance means that if we have, I want to talk with my hands. If we have a berm all the way around here, and it's a pond in the middle, we could consider it 2 different ways. We could consider that there's a barrier all the way around the end, and that there's flow in the middle, and the flow is permissible. And it's considered in the model, and that would lessen the impact naturally because there's some flow occurring in the middle of this duct. But we didn't pursue it that way. We said that all the area up to the level of the top of the berm is unavailable for flow. So the water inside the berm is static. And even with that, the change was 0.07 feet, an insignificant amount.
And because of the way that takes that into account, is using the berm for your conclusion of this report more conservative, i.e. that there would be more of an effect on the base flood elevation level with the berm than without the berm? Or maybe I stretched out too much, and I think Don had asked similar questions, but with the berm, I believe you testified that it was a 0.07 foot increase of the base flood elevation.
Right.
Without the berm blocking the water, and therefore more water could flow in this area, what was the increase to the base flood elevation?
0, beyond the resolution of the model.
So significantly, truly significantly no difference.
Yes. I think 0.07 is insignificant, or is basically 0. I mean, when it's flooding, how high are the waves? How turbulent is the water? I mean, we can't model what this flood is going to be to this high. We're just kidding ourselves. It's in the noise of this whole process.
And then I'd like to also ask about the trailer and to try to get an explanation. Regardless of whether or not JB is there, that trailer is still within the floodplain and subject to flooding.
That's correct. Mobile home is within the floodplain. It seems to be common practice, because I drove out there today and I saw a number of mobile homes. I didn't study them all, but it's a common practice throughout West Virginia and throughout the country that the mobile homes get placed. We call them tractor placements because they're pulled with a farm tractor, and we put out no permits have been obtained as part of Dan's headache to keep everyone secure, safe. The codes now for mobile home placement exceed those for residential homes. There are very strict code requirements for place them mobile homes in floodplains. You can't just use stack blocking.
Thank you, Mr. Bueller.
Any further questions?
I don't.
Bring on.
Just one clarification, the berm we keep talking about, the berm that we keep talking about isn't really an enclosed. It comes around and stuff, but the part on the road, because trucks have to drive in and out of that. So there is, like, part of it that is at grade or level with the road. It's not like you have this dike around the whole site. And we have a situation on Big Flint Road where someone did put a dike in to protect their home that's sort of elevated. And every time there's a flood or flood situation, there's a pond there, and it just, the water sits there, it ends up draining out, but for a while you have mosquito heaven. And that water is trapped in this dike pin area, but this particular situation, it is not completely contained, because the entrance, the area, the part that's on the road currently does not have a berm area around it. There's a berm area that's been sort of placed that's on the creek side, I think, but I don't think that's the final plan.
The final plan shows the concrete barrier totally
Concrete.
It's concrete, totally encompassing the work site, and at the location of the entrance, it's buried under soil. So in terms of the cup that holds the water, the cup is fully encircling. It's just that there's a ramp to enter from the road.
See, I had asked that question. I had asked that question if they were going to put in a ramp or a bridge. I had asked that question when I believe I made my comment.
It is in the comments.
I mean, because to me it seemed, well, okay, thank you.
So when is this berm going up?
I don't know.
After all the work's done?
The berm goes in before construction of the wells.
Well, what is the construction of the wells? When they drilled those verticals, the two they already drilled without a berm, that's not considered part of the construction? What's part of the construction?
I'm going to object. It is considered part of the construction. That's why we're here right now. I mean, we got a stop work order on the construction. We're here, and so
Well, that was because you didn't apply for a floodplain
we recognize that.
permit. It wasn't because you didn't have the berm.
Sorry.
Mr. President, at this time, neither of the parties have called Dan Wellings to testify, and I desire to call him forward for some brief testimony. Mr. Wellings, would you state your full name?